Richard Hugo. Ever heard of Richard Hugo?
I have. He's sort of what I would call a typical, maybe not typical dead white male of the mid 20th century. He was a little bit better than average, but again, I'm trying to think. He didn't have as much raw talent as say W.S. Merwin, but he probably was a
Mm.
little bit better than a W.S. Merwin overall. Um, uh, I do. Let me think. Where would I have his book here? I know I let's see. I got John Berryman here. Let me see.
It's also on the list as of.
Oh, okay. Richard Hugo, Richard Wilbur, Kenneth Coke, Lewis Simpson. There's Merwin. There's Lowell. Let's see. Oh, Richard Hugo. Here we go.
There you go.
Spontaneous there. So that we want to. No, I did. Oh, okay. So here's my little notes from when I read this 30 years or so. So Richard Hugo, one, I gave him a 77 out of 100, which means good solid. Nature, hard-edged poems, visual, interesting rhyme schemes, often slant rhymes, decent poems, a rougher, tougher frost, no standouts, but no real failures, a lot of points of interest. Page 43, excellent. Formulaic but interesting points of departure from formula. Page 102, excellent. Page 113. So, yeah.
There you go.
So that was my thought there. And you said Berryman was the next one.
Berryman, Lowell, and Theodore Rothke, if you got him up there.
It's pronounced Retke,
Is it? Rothke.
or I guess in German it'd be Retke. So let's see, Berryman here. What did I write about old Johnny B? I think Berryman's real name was Smith, John Smith, and he chose his stepfather name.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Berryman, I gave a little bit more than Hugo, 80. John Berryman, intellectual, good phrases, emotional, keys turned at good points, yet emotion subdued, all instincts of an excellent poet, yet lacks the catchphrase or great ending in poems. Good love sonnets, homage to Mrs. Bradstreet, powerful yet uneven, very uneven. Later poems descend into ramblings, pompous and shitty. Yeah, he got worse as he went on. He could have been a really great poet.
Mm.
The rest of the poets, I don't think I have the ability to find them here without moving all this stuff here. But
No worries. Yeah.
give me the other names again. Oh, Retke. I mean, his most famous
Rothke and
poem.
Lowell.
Yeah, Retke. His most famous poem is about dancing with his father, clinging to his shirt.
Yeah.
That one. He's someone who I think could have been a great poet too. I would put him. At the same level as Berryman. Maybe a little bit more consistent, but again, Berryman has moments, especially in the dream songs, that they're probably
Yeah.
a handful
Yeah.
of great dream songs. So at his best, he's better, but much more consistent. I would
Yeah.
say what's
Yeah.
his name, Retke. And Lowell probably was the most talented of all of them. Uh, he's got some really great sonnets. Uh, but yeah, he's another one that it seems to me probably as he got older started doing the workshops thing. One of the things that was very prevalent in the late 20th century, and might still be, is these kinds of uh, writers who would go to these MFA, not the MFA programs, but these writing workshops, especially in the summer, and they'd be the professor always hitting on the cute young girl,
Yeah.
telling them. I went to the Brockport Writers Forum in 1987, and I was 22, and I remember there was a guy, William Matthews, mediocre poet, and I wrote about this in my True Life, I think. One night, I'm sleeping in a dorm room. It was like a week long thing. It was being hosted by a woman named Judith Kitchen and her husband, whose name I forget, a Jewish fellow, and her son Matthew was there, and there was this woman. I won't mention her name, but I can give a good anecdote about her. Uh, but
By all means.
but this William Matthews. So one night, so there was maybe about in the whole dorm or whatnot, maybe about 7 other people there are probably 100 rooms or something because it was the summer. I remember the 1987 baseball All-Star game I watched down in the rec room, and there was one guy with a broken leg there. But anyway, I get a knock on the door, and there's this girl that comes to me maybe like the first or second night there, and she says there's some sounds going on there. I remember, I forget particularly, but anyway, I ended up getting laid. And then the next night, the next night, I'm wanted to get to sleep, but I couldn't fall asleep, so I decided to walk around. It might have been after the All-Star game. I forget what date I went, but I'm walking around, and I get up to like the third floor of the dormitory, and in that the center room or whatever you call it, I see this William Matthews, and he's got two young girls. One girl I think had red hair, another one I forget whether she was blonde or brunette, and they're like doing lines of cocaine, and he's wanting to have like a threesome with them, and the one girl isn't having it, and so she's like she God, I can't even remember everything. But anyway, what ended up is she came and spent the night in my room, and Matthews was late the next morning for the thing, the workshop, because I guess he was snorting too much shit with this other
Late for the
girl.
workshop because he was up all night
And
doing rails the
and
size of a mare's tail.
and
Yes.
and
So,
and no, but here's the interesting thing is there was this girl who was really talented. Um, I won't use her name, but we were
Maya
walking.
Angelou.
No,
Yeah.
we were walking along the Erie Canal one of the days because I bought a few books, including some Robinson Jeffers books, The Double Axe, one of his great long poems, great book length poems, and I was telling her because she was the one I was really attracted to. I remember she refused to wear makeup. She was wearing very Waltons, the TV show The Waltons kind of stuff. She didn't want to wear makeup because of whales were killed and this kind of thing. And
Sure.
I remember coming down a little hill because if you ever walk by the Erie Canal, it goes up and the grass goes up and down there. It's a very jagged landscape, and I remember like grabbing her and pulling her down, and like she fell on top of me. I remember we were laughing, and it was like a 1970s kind of movie there, and I remember we started kissing and whatnot, but I didn't get any further than that because we were in public. And later that day, I go it was the day before. There was like the closing party of the writing workshop, and I was trying to talk to her, but she was kept talking to this old asshole who kept insisting that James Joyce didn't have syphilis, and and she was clearly avoiding me. So I remember I wrote to her afterwards, and she never returned my letter because I really wanted to get her, write to her and whatnot. Years go by, and I during the 2016 election election cycle, she had claimed that the selection of Donald Trump by the Republicans had triggered her, and she committed a petty crime because of this. I can't. I'm not going to mention what the crime is because I don't want to get into it. But it was just very bizarre. But getting then back to William Matthews, is he had a son who's a poet who's probably even worse than he is, or a writer even worse than William Matthews was, because Matthews died. The son's name was Sebastian Matthews, and he wrote a Daddy Dearest kind of bio about what a scumbag his father was. And I remember one time someone told me or showed me this. So I think this is maybe about 15 years ago. I sent off an email to like SebastianMatthews.com or whatever site he had at the time, and I said, I just want to, and I told him this little anecdote about his father. Just instead, if you ever want to write a sequel follow up here, this would be a great anecdote. I never heard back from him, of course, but